That so-called little girl playing doctor had no business being out here with real soldiers. Staff Sergeant Doyle had sneered across the briefing room at FOB Ranger Point, his voice loud enough for every man to hear. 6 hours later, Specialist Hadley Pierce was counting 17 insurgents moving through the haze, while Doyle's femoral artery turned the Korash dirt crimson. The only thing separating her squad from total annihilation was the medic they swore couldn't fight. Specialist Hadley Pierce. Barely 5'4" in dust-stained ACUs, adjusted the straps of her medical pack that weighed half as much as she did. 28 years old and built like a distance runner, she had heard every version of the same insult since stepping into FOB Ranger Point 3 months prior. The convoy was gearing up for another clearance run through Chactinu. Ridgeway Pass, that cursed section of Highway 1 where IEDs sprouted like lethal weeds. Her hands moved with automatic precision, checking tonic, verifying hemostatic agents, counting chest seals one by one. To the others, she looked like a small woman fussing over gear. They couldn't see the ranch girl from rural Wyoming, the one who'd been setting broken bones on cattle since age 12, or the EMT who'd worked Cleveland's home. Roughest blocks before joining up. Hey, wherever you're watching from, whether you've served or just support those who do, hit that subscribe button, because these stories of quiet heroes deserve to be heard. Hadley's road to combat medicine began in the frozen fields of her family's ranch, outside Cheyenne. Her grandfather, a Vietnam corpsman, had taught her that saving lives under fire was its own kind of battle. He'd seat her at the kitchen table with old Navy manuals, making her practice stitches on raw chicken while he fired his .308 Winchester outside, teaching her to keep steady hands through chaos. She earned her EMTP license at 19, spending 3 years on Cleveland's Mahone ambulances, where gunshots were just another Friday night. The Army came calling hard, promising advanced training and purpose. She graduated top of her class from 68W Combat Medic School at Fort Carson, then volunteered for extra instruction with the Chatham I-2nd Recon Regiment's Maupra medical unit. Though she never wore their tan beret, she mastered their trauma routines. Her instructors drilled one truth into her: speed kills, but calm precision under fire saves lives. Her motivation came from something her grandfather whispered before he passed. Medics don't just patch holes, Hadley. They hold the line between bringing your brothers home alive or zipped in boxes. That burden carried her to Korash Province, where her squad still viewed her as someone to guard, instead of someone who might keep them breathing. The doubt had started the first week at FOB Ranger Point, during her initial mass casualty exercise. The platoon's senior NCO had stuck her with triage tags, while the male medics handled the mock trauma cases. When she corrected a senior specialist's sloppy tourniquet work during training, he'd snorted and asked if she'd picked that trick up from Grey's Anatomy. Staff Sergeant Doyle was the worst of them all, calling her Florence Nightingale, or suggesting she belonged in the aid tent instead of out on convoys. The breaking point came during the morning's pre-mission briefing. Lieutenant Briggs Somkins was outlining casualty collection zones when Doyle cut him off, jabbing a finger toward Pierce. "Sir, respectfully, we should keep Doc Pierce in the truck during any contact. She's barely 100 pounds soaking wet. If Santos or Miss Reeves Hahn go down, she couldn't drag them if her life depended on it." The room froze. A few NCOs shifted, but no one spoke. Hadley Hunt stood tall, meeting his stare. "Staff Sergeant, I can carry 200 pounds for 100 meters. I've run a 9-minute mile wearing full kit and a med pack. My TCCC scores are the highest in the company. But if you want to gamble your life thinking I'd leave you bleeding because I'm too small, that's on you. Lieutenant Briggs. Shut the conversation down, but the damage was done. Half the platoon still saw her as a kid sister pretending to be a soldier, not the one person most capable of keeping them alive when rounds started flying. Inside the cramped MRAP, Shaw pressed her gloved hands against her temples, fighting that familiar burn behind her eyes. Not tears. She'd stopped wasting those on ignorant men long ago. What she felt now was rage, refined into purpose. She thought back to her first field call in Cleveland. A teenager with 3 gunshot wounds everyone said was a lost cause. She'd worked him for 40 straight minutes, brought his pulse back, and saw him walk out of the hospital 6 weeks later. Then came the echo of her grandfather's voice in her head. Steady pressure, Hadley. Death doesn't care if you're scared, so don't be. Even while cancer was killing him, he kept teaching her between chemo sessions, determined to pass on every lesson before his body quit. She'd promised to be more than good enough, to be exceptional. But exceptional didn't mean much if your own team didn't trust you to do your job. Through the armored glass, she saw Doyle Mopunk, laughing with his buddies, all acting like this was just another routine patrol. But the intel briefs told a different story. Spikes in enemy radio chatter, odd movement in nearby villages, the kind of signs that made seasoned soldiers tense. Pierce checked her M4 mags, repositioned her medkit, and steadied herself. Contact or not, she'd be ready, whether they believed in her or not. Then the world exploded. The lead MRAP launched off the dirt road, flipped onto its side in a roar of dust and fire. Her own vehicle screeched to a stop as machine gun fire ripped from the ridge above. The ambush was executed by the book, an IED to halt the convoy, overlapping gunfire from higher ground. RPGs aimed straight at the weak points of the vehicles. Amid the chaos, Pierce Annen heard the one radio call she dreaded most. Medic, medic down. The company's senior medic had been in the lid truck. She grabbed her aid bag, but her vehicle commander clamped a hand on her shoulder. Stay put, Doc. We're getting chewed up out there. Through the dust, she spotted Doyle's Mitain team trapped 30 meters away, one man dragging another behind twisted metal while Doyle lay exposed, blood spreading beneath him. The incoming fire intensified. Enemy fighters were closing in fast, using the slopes and dead ground to creep closer. Lieutenant Briggs's Jumper voice broke through the comms, ragged with panic. We need CAS now. There's still minutes out. Multiple wounded. Where's medical support? Hadley counted muzzle flashes. 15, maybe more. Above her, the 50 cal gunner was slumped forward, bleeding from his leg. Without him, the line would collapse. She reached up, found the wound. Through and through, not arterial. She could fix him enough to keep him fighting, but it meant climbing into the open. Below, Doyle's screams faded, either shock or blood loss. There was no time to hesitate. Pierce made her choice between heartbeats. She pulled herself up through the turret, slapped a pressure dressing on the gunner's thigh, and smacked his helmet. Harris. You're good. Get back on that 50. As he gritted through the pain and opened fire again, she dropped from the vehicle with her rifle and medpack, sprinting through the kill zone. Training from those 82nd Recon Star-1 instructors surged back. Move under cover, use terrain, act with violence and speed. She dropped 2 insurgents trying to flank, the M4 feeling like part of her arm. Reaching. Doyle. She saw what she feared. Femoral bleed, upper thigh, 4 minutes at best. Her hands moved instinctively. Tourniquet high and tight. Pack the junction with combat gauze. Apply direct pressure where the artery disappeared into the pelvis. Doyle's eyes locked on hers, wide with shock. "I've got you, Staff Sergeant," she said, still working. "But I need you focused. Watch that ridge. Call out any movement." Beside him, another soldier was gasping. Chest punctured by shrapnel, lung collapsing. Pierce jammed a 3-inch angio catheter between his ribs, decompressing the tension and sealing the wound in one practiced motion. It was the precise move that bought precious minutes when a chest refused to expand, and she followed it with a quick chest seal. As the insurgents charged their position, Pierce shifted effortlessly from medic to warrior, dropping 3 attackers with controlled shots while using her knee to keep pressure on Reeves's cone wound. By the time the quick reaction team arrived, she had treated 4 wounded, taken out 5 hostiles, and coordinated the medevac, never once letting her guard drop. When the Black Hawk lifted off carrying Doyle and Surtson and Chatatuhum, Reeves, both alive because of her hands, the Mime Battalion surgeon, would later write her treatment was flawless. One hesitation, and they'd both have been dead. She stood near the LZ, uniform soaked in other people's blood, watching the helicopter fade into the dusty haze of Korash Valley. First Sergeant Cole Dwakeku walked up, his face unreadable. Specialist Pierce, that was hell. That was something else. They're putting you in for a Bronze Star with valor. Battalion's asking for your helmet cam footage for the citation. It's already in motion. Around them, the platoon gathered, a mix of awe and guilt written across their faces. The same soldiers who once doubted her now breathing because she hadn't. 6 weeks later, Doyle Talksituan returned to Fob Ranger Point on crutches. He found Pierce Stacon at the aid station and stood in silence for a long moment before speaking. "I was wrong. Dead wrong. You saved my life when you could have walked away. You need to know. Hell, we all need to know. You're the best damn soldier in this platoon." She only nodded, taking the apology with her usual quiet professionalism. Word spread fast through the battalion. The small medic from Wancotron, Wyoming, became the new benchmark for battlefield medicine. But for Theondrine Drashak Hadley, sitting once more in that same MRAP, prepping for another mission, the real victory was simpler. Her squad now saw her exactly as her grandfather always had, a warrior who carried bandages instead of bullets. They'd finally learned what she'd known all along. In combat, skill doesn't wear a gender, only the weight of its consequences.